Welcome to Inside Richmond, the official vodcast of Richmond Rugby Club. My name is Tom Soulsby, and today we're joined by a true Richmond legend. She's played over 290 matches for our club. It's the one and only Laura Kapo. Kapo, welcome to the show. How are you, and how has lockdown been?
I'm good. Lockdown's been a challenge, but I think it's been a challenge for everyone. It's just getting used to the new norm. Knowing what day of the week it is a challenge, and knowing what time of day it is a challenge, and what to do in your evenings is also a bit of fun. But good for the main part. Good. It's been an interesting experience, but you're not going to get this time again. So it's good fun.
Absolutely. We've obviously got a huge amount to chat to you about today. Lots about your career here at Richmond, obviously, and some great questions from the outer to finish off, which should be fun. Before we get into that, let's touch on you personally and your health. How are you? And can you sort of explain to those that don't know the sort of journey you've been on over the last few years?
Yeah, so I'll probably start from where I was. So I was diagnosed with a osteosarcoma in my pelvis a few years ago now, and have sort of undergone lots of different treatments with chemotherapy, radiotherapy, immunotherapy, all therapies. And I think I'm up to 7 different surgeries now. And it has been a challenge, and it has been difficult at times, which is where I have massively relied on sort of my social network, my friends and family to support me. The club have been fantastic at supporting me as well, which has been brilliant. But really happy to report that I'm sort of unofficially in remission, because technically my cancer specialist is still closed to non-urgent patients, so I'm not able to go and get the official the official sign off. But my GP spoken to me, and having looked at my last sorts of results and everything, they're sort of confident I'm in the remission period. So I'm going to have a massive party when we come out of lockdown. I think there's so much to celebrate in the meantime, yeah.
That's exceptional news, Capo. Obviously, we can't celebrate at the moment. We'll wait until we get the official word. But I think...
Lots of things to celebrate, I can imagine.
Yeah, exactly. But I think when I speak on behalf of the whole Richmond rugby family, I say how great that is. And obviously, we're so happy to hear you're doing so well. So, yeah, let's get a party soon. But
get a party in.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's kick things off. Let's wind the clock back now. As mentioned at the very top, you've made over 290 appearances for our club. Not sure on the number.
296.
There you go. Very close to that big 300 milestone. You've obviously held many roles with us. You're our current women's chairwoman. But how did rugby start for you originally?
It was a really weird one. I don't come from a rugby family at all, and had never played rugby or even watched a game before sort of coming down to Richmond, and kind of found Richmond by accident. I needed a team sport for my A-level PE course. Long story short, I was at the 6th form. The other sort of school teams had folded, with lots of the players and girls having moved on to different colleges. So my PE teacher at school, who had played rugby at uni, was like, you should go and try it out. I think you'd be really good for it. I used to do netball and hockey at county level. So she was like, there's a lot of transferable skills. And I'd kind of played football and cricket as well with the boys. But it was like, you've got lots of transferable skills. You'll enjoy it. I was like, well, okay, it can't be that hard. Was originally put in touch with Isha Rugby Club because they had a girls team, and they were sort of 5 minutes from my doorstep at home. And to be told they didn't have a ladies side, so I needed to go to a senior section. Was put in touch with Richmond. So knowing nothing about women's rugby at all, or anything to do with the heritage, anything to do with what club was what, it was literally, I was just sent down the road to Richmond, which was sort of 20 minutes away from my family home. I was like, yeah, okay, great, I'll go try it. And literally rocked up and was just like, wow, so many people. And just thrown into the deep end. It was literally just like, it's like, you don't want to drop the ball because that's a bad thing. So it was like, keep the ball in 2 hands, okay, and just run. pretty much, I think, most of the instruction I got in my first couple of sessions, but loved it, absolutely loved it. So I haven't looked back. I haven't looked back at all, and it's kind of where it all started.
You mentioned obviously when you arrived at Richmond. Can you sort of explain what the women's section was like back then, and the sort of the players that had been before you?
Yeah, it was a huge, thriving section. They had the third team had just started back up literally that season that I arrived. So the first training session I turned up, there was maybe 60 odd women. I was clearly the youngest there. Well, to me, it was obvious I was the youngest. A lot of them thought I was a lot older than I was. So I think I was 16 when I first turned up, and a lot of them thought I was in my 20s. What uni have you just finished from? It's not even a question. They're really intimidating, but so welcoming. There's a lot of the club legends were there when I first turned up. We had C. Dorrington, who's just legendary in her own right. Yeah. Carol Isherwood was there. We had Nikki Jupp, Helen Ives, Sharon Whitehead, the Chevette sisters, who are both absolute fantastic players, but hugely intimidating in their own playing right. Laura Smith, Erica Vessel, who is another club legend, and Sammy Wilson, and she'd never forgive me for not mentioning her. And these are all names that are sort of like really big part of our legacy, having represented the first team, second team, third team across sort of like the whole time. And they've massively shaped my career with either their just help and guidance they've given me, or dragging me to various different bars, which is always good fun too. But yeah, no, like it was really welcoming environment to come into.
I know it's a long time ago now, 296 matches ago, but do you remember your first Richmond match?
I do remember my first. I was so just overwhelmed, I think, with everything. I was just 17. I think I was 17 like a week before, and was just a bit like, okay, just get on with it, just play. And all I was told, I think, and I'd only been training for about 3 weeks by that point, and it was just, if you get the ball in hand, just run straight forward until you get to the try line, until you can't run anymore. And I was like, okay, great. So got given the ball in space, ran a little bit, got tackled, went down, put the ball back, did what I was told. The next time I got the ball, and it's a moment I remember and kind of cringe at the same time. I got it on the halfway line, and remember the rule: keep the ball in hand, run to get to the try line. So I ran, sort of evaded a couple of people, got to the try line, and then smashed the ball down on the floor and was like, "Yeah, I got the try!" And it's like, you don't try like that. Oh. No one told me it's not quite like American football where you just launch the ball to the floor. Like, no one told me that. So yeah. Technically my first try and my first game wasn't a try. So it's a little bit annoying. it was a fun game actually, and the girls ripped into me for that for years. So yeah, good memories.
Of course. And what position did you kick off your career with? Because you have indeed played a lot.
So that first game, I started on the wing, made the horrific mistake of trying to score a try, and then they decided to take away some of the responsibility from me and put me in the back row instead. So I kind of stayed in the back row for a few more weeks and games, just to kind of get that sort of time under my belt a little bit. So my new instruction wasn't to sort of get my hands on the ball. It was just, if someone else has the ball, tackle them. Okay. I like really short, sharp instructions. It's quite easy to follow.
Well, you obviously came a long way. Can you then sort of explain your transition from, I guess, that time to then moving into the first team, and how long that took you?
Yeah, well, it fluctuated a bit because I'm quite clumsy, so I get injured sometimes, quite a fair bit. And so I think in my first season, I went kind of straight through the team. So I played in the third team in my first game. I think my third game in, I was playing for the twos in the back row, and then by my 8th or 9th game, I was benching for the first team, but covering the back line. I still didn't know enough about the game really to play anywhere other than the wing, because it was quite literally just stay out of the way until the ball comes from your direction and then just run forward. So I was like, all right, I can't really mess that up. But we're so kind of, again, oblivious and so naive to just who players were in the game. I think my debut for the first team was actually against Saracens. and I scored a try against Paula George, who was then the England 15, I think, and I had no idea who she was. Literally, it was just, here's the ball, run. Okay, ran around her, and I remember scoring the try, and just people just being like, oh my god, oh my god. And I was like, scored a try. I was happy I put the ball down over the line. That was my sort of celebration. But people saying to me afterwards, who she was? I was like, no. In hindsight, it's probably quite rude not knowing who she was, but it was those kind of things I can look back and actually laugh that you kind of get to take those memories away and remember those, which is quite good. So yeah, it's quite like lots of different transitions. I sort of played between the three teams depending on where I was in my rehab and recovering, broken ankles, broken wrists, broken fingers, thumbs, dislocated kneecaps, lots of different things.
You mentioned your memories there. You obviously have loads from your Richmond career, but I guess one of your proudest ones, your proudest achievements, I guess, is winning the women's premiership against Sarries in 2016 at the Stoop.
Yeah.
Can you sort of explain that memory and that day and how great it was for our club? And also touch on the, I read the warm-up situation and having to get ready on the back pitches with the car headlights providing you with the light.
Yeah, no, it was a really good, special day. And I remember feeling kind of really overwhelmed leading into it. Just my role at the time, I'd recently taken over the chairwoman role. Mm-hmm. So I was quite heavily involved in a lot of the organisation, but I was still the fixture secretary at the time. So was in constant communication with the people at the Stoop and the people at the RFU who were issuing the tickets for players and supporters to come and watch, and that kind of all funneled through me, which was a challenge. So sort of liaising with all of that, making sure that our timing schedule was right. Our second team were playing at home that day as well, and had their final game of the season, which actually saw them win the Championship South for the first time in 9 years, I think it was, when they won in 2016 as well. So it was a massive day, making sure that they had been all supported in the morning as much as possible before we headed off to the Stoop and celebrated their milestone. And then when we arrived at the Stoop, it was all very chaotic and there was kit all over the place. And then we were told the changing rooms were over in the college venue because Harlequins men had been playing in the afternoon. I remember it was a Sunday evening. It was really wet and cold. So we were taken off these changing rooms and then told that the pitch that we were warming up on was the college pitch, so Richmond College pitch. And it was like, well, that's not a problem. Can we turn the lights on so we can see what we're doing? And it was like, nope, we're just going to drive some cars around and put the headlights on. Like, wow. So I think a representative from the RFU did a toss-up with Richmond and Sarries. We won, which meant that we were given the closest end to the changing room. So we had a fraction more light than Sarries. Whether that was the winning, the sort of a tipping point for us, I don't know, but it was just very surreal because you wouldn't get that now at all. But I think it's important that players experience those various different and can reflect on those times, particularly now that we're kind of going into this new sort of professional era, to just remember actually that that's how far the game's come and still how far the game has yet to go. Yeah. But as you say, that was a really special day, a really special memory. Like all of my family were there, which was great to support us, to share it with them. And the rest of the sort of extended Richmond family, we had lots of original founders of the women's section were there as well, which was great. So a really positive experience, a really positive day.
And do you remember the celebrations, or are they just a fact?
I remember most. I'd like to say that I remember most. In fact, actually, I do remember a fair bit. We had, there was lots of bubbles and stuff going around in the changing rooms, but it was a bit rushed because our changing room wall was like a partition wall between us and Sarries. So it kind of felt a little bit distasteful that we were maybe rubbing it in a little bit much. But then we headed off back to Richmond. So fortunately for us, it was only 10 minutes down the road in various different taxis. And I hope we had a shuttleness of taxis going back and forth. But yeah, back to Richmond. Obviously at the Sun, the cup was sort of paraded around the Sun. I think everyone drank from that. You wouldn't be able to do that nowadays. But everyone was definitely drinking from there. And we were there well into the very early hours, considering it was a Sunday. So it was a really great occasion, really special occasion.
It sounds like a true Richmond celebration, that's for sure. Following that premiership, we then faced a bit of a challenge. We lost a lot of players to other clubs, in particular Harlequins. I guess how difficult was that sort of transition period for our club, and do you feel that was a really challenging time?
It was challenging, yeah, because I don't think, although you always anticipate a movement of players between clubs at the end of a season, that always happens, whether players want a change of environment, they want a new challenge. For various different aspects, it can also be work commitments, travel, lots of different reasons. So we always anticipate, and most clubs do work to a sort of 10% sort of loss of players, but obviously for us to have lost the caliber of players that we did in such a short period of time and so close to the start of the new season, it was the month and a half, 2 months before the start of the season actually started, that we were like, well, hang on a minute, there was 16 of our winning 25-man squad from the season before that weren't there anymore, and it was a weird transition as well, because there was sort of 5 or 6 of us that had remained, having had the massive euphoria sort of the couple of months before, to all of a sudden feeling really flat and deflated. So it was quite hard, because then we were also then massively challenging our second team players, who had also gone from the euphoria of winning their league and playing to the best of their ability, and all of a sudden we're throwing them in the deep end of playing at a level that they weren't necessarily comfortable with or weren't ready for. And in the same way, our third team, our Impalas, did the same. So they were promoted up into our second team and playing against teams that were, a league above them. And the nature of the women's game as well, people hear Richmond and they want to take a pop at us, regardless of what team they're playing and when. So they want to really bring their A game, and they do. So when we were underprepared, probably, and maybe with players that were playing a little bit above their ability, and especially because it didn't give us enough time to gel as a squad, and to gel 2 squads. Sorry, I apologise. We had to gel both squads into sort of reigniting everyone back together, and it was quite hard. We do celebrate the fact that for the first time there was a massive push from the remaining players that stayed, from past players from years before that had either retired or stopped playing, or had moved away. We sort of put out a massive Hail Mary call out to any women players, because we were adamant we were going to still field our 3 teams. And we did for the first 4 fixtures of that season. It was the first time in 12 years alone that all 3 teams played at home on the opening weekend of the season starting. So that was in itself, it shows I suppose the willingness to play for Richmond, the reputation it has just to attract that many players and for people to want to play. We had a number of players come out of retirement just to kind of help us to get those games fielded, to get us started. So, there's a huge attraction at Richmond. It's just at the time, I think we needed to refocus ourselves and bring ourselves back into a point of focusing on our first team and second team. So it was a challenging time, but I think we've handled it the best way that we can.
Absolutely, and true Richmond spirits. We then obviously had 3 years in the Tyrrells in the Premier 15s, and that unfortunately has come to an end. We've touched on that in the past, so we'll leave that there. But how would you reflect on our 3 seasons in the Tyrrells Premier 15s, and I guess what were the positives?
So to focus on the positives that we had, we had some great wins in all 3 seasons. We've attracted and we've continued to attract new players to not just the club but to the game. We've had a couple of players that have converted from various different sports, and they've continued to play rugby, and they've continued to play with Richmond. We've had some great experiences, and to give the opportunity to some of our younger players, particularly coming through, to have the opportunity to play at some of these sort of national stadiums and on these really big platforms, whether they've played at the Stoop, whether they've played at Worcester over at Six Ways.
Yeah.
going up to Darlington, which is always fun, that really long journey up, but being able to play at the Northern Echo Arena is just, it's a huge platform for these girls to have experience, especially the really young ones that might not have had that chance to until they get to that sort of bigger stage. And obviously being able to play over at the Stoop is a great opportunity. I think the highlight for some of our players as well was being able to play the double header with Wasps over at the Rico last season. That was a great opportunity because it was the first time Wasps men had really embraced the women's game and hosted the double header, and to really welcome both sides up to the Rico in Coventry was brilliant, and a great exhibition for the game as well. And there were lots of girls there watching, so to be able to be part of that and to hopefully inspire and continue to inspire the next generation coming through, and to help grow the fan base and to grow the game. So connecting with our supporters, connecting with our members and sort of our grassroots clubs is really important. I think we've done that quite well over the last 3 seasons. So there's been lots of positives. There's been a few times that, positive and a negative, we've done really well in the first half, in the opening half of a game. I think it was in our season 2, we had quite a few games where we were leading at halftime and probably should have won. We definitely scared, I know, Saracens at halftime, and we had Harlequins as well, Gloucester Hartbury, Loughborough, where we were leading at halftime. We'd go into the changing rooms and almost have a really complacent moment and then just throw it all out the window in the second half. They're really disappointing that we couldn't actually finish on those occasions, almost like we run out of steam. We'd get to the 40-minute mark or the 50-minute mark, and we were still like, yeah, this is great. And then all of a sudden it was like we'd tail off a little bit and forget how to play rugby and forget what our game plan was, and then we just couldn't finish. So it's disappointing that there's those occasions that when we really scared and rattled our opposition, that we just couldn't finish and have those brilliant games and really celebrate the game afterwards. But there's still lots of positives on the games that we do win, which is always good.
Looking ahead, we know where we'll be playing next season. It's the Championship South. A fantastic opportunity for our club to create some new fantastic history. How excited are you for that new challenge?
I'm really excited. The last time I played in the Championship South was when I was captain of the second team. So that was about 5-6 years ago now. And I really enjoyed the clubs that we used to play against. So the likes of Henley and Hove, Cheltenham, Trojans, even Thurrock. And they're great oppositions. The game is played in a sort of real intense, it's always like a really intense battle. Everyone really wants to go for the game and launch themselves at it. And it's rugby played at its best. It's not showy and sort of really pushed over the top. It's the elements of the grassroots game, which everyone sort of started playing rugby for the fun of it. I don't think I've met anyone that hasn't played it because it wasn't fun. So we get to kind of go back and really enjoy our rugby and be playing against oppositions that also want to enjoy their rugby as well. But hopefully we can bring our own level of professionalism of everything that Richmond has grown over the years of having played Premiership rugby for 35 years now. So we can hopefully bring our experience with us. And if we can lend that experience to the Championship, then brilliant. And really sort of strive to, again, keep driving the women's game, to driving popularity, driving the exposure of. So I'm definitely looking forward to the challenge. I think it's going to be really good fun.
We obviously don't know when that season will start. One thing we do know is that we've lost Mike Panaho, our head coach. Mike, if you're watching, I guess we say thank you for everything you've done for the club over the last 2 seasons and wish you all the best. But moving forward, are you confident we can find the right person for this club? And what type of character do you think we need as a coach at Richmond Women?
Mike leaving, he's done a great job for us in the last couple of seasons. So thank you very much to Mike. And I think that the right coach for us is definitely out there. They just haven't found us, or we haven't found them yet. But there's definitely the right one. And it's a matter of, I suppose, respecting and embracing sort of the really vibrant and rich culture at Richmond and the history of the women's section, but also having a very clear direction about where Richmond Women are going to go and how we're going to get there. So that's going to form a massive part of our future. And the coach coming in, I suppose, has to, embrace and respect where we've been, but also have that very clear vision, and be able to implement a development plan that will be able to sort of implement each year, and continue to grow the section to sort of get us back to full strength. It was crushing to be able to, or to have to fold our third team, the Impalas, 4 years ago, and really disappointingly, we've had players that come to us who are brand new players, and they're very sort of green into the game, and we need to be able to provide that level for them, that they can come in and play in a safe environment that's at the right competitive level for them. And at the moment, when we've just got our two teams, we don't have that third tier for them. And it also provides a layer for our girl sections that we're associated with. So those that are sort of the girls that are turning 18 and wanting to take their first steps into senior rugby, being able to play in a really fun environment that's a little bit social but also competitive at the right level, is really good. So getting a coach that has the vision to see that we've got sort of international and county aspirational players that want to be tested and proved every week, and be really competitive for their shirt and want to start every week, but also have the upward pressure from our second team, and in further down the line, hopefully our Impalas back as well. So the right coaches out there. I know we've had a few applicants through. It's looking really competitive. So it's a matter of watch this space, I think.
Yeah, exciting. Very exciting to see who we get. It was actually Mike who was quoted as saying, if you cut Kapo in half, she would bleed red and black and gold. But can you explain, in your own words, why you love this club and why you think this club is the perfect place for a young player who's looking to really start their rugby journey?
Yeah, so I came to the club when I was 16, nearly 17, and I've not had any reason to leave because the club provides me with so much. It's given me so much stability in terms of the support and the friendships that I've made. Being such a big club, but being such an integrated club as well, there is so much support externally around you, for you, and that's kind of followed me through all of my adult life. So going to university, I thought I was going to go to university, and I did go for the first year, and just really didn't feel comfortable, but just sort of did it because that's what everyone else was doing, it was what I thought was expected of me. And it was speaking to quite a few different friends and being exposed to, in my eyes at the time, lots of adults around me and a lot of people that were players that were relatable because they had either been to university or they hadn't. So having those sort of role models to sort of bounce off of and get their life experience and to be able to be guided a little bit, which was really nice, because as much as we all love our parents and probably do respect their opinions, we don't necessarily hear it the same way, and I certainly don't. Your parents will say, do you go to university? And it's like, well, I'm not going to. But a friend will say, go to university, it's really worthwhile, and it's a little bit more relatable. So I found that the support there has been great, and just the environment down at the club, I think there's always someone to talk to, and regardless if you're just talking to them to watch a game and just have a bit of a chat and have a beer or have a cup of tea, even if you're just sat in the canteen, there's rugby to watch almost all the time. Whether you're down in the morning picking up your car from the night before, there's a mini rugby going on a Sunday, so you can always just stand and watch all these tiny little tykes run about, which is adorable. But then there's the rugby on a Saturday. You can go down the odd Friday night lights, or you can pop down on a Wednesday, do a gym session, and all of a sudden there's a Saxons game or a Normans game or a Vikings game going on, playing the RAF, or occasionally the Heavies who are playing the Army, because that's a great idea. But it's a great club to be part of, and I think the support that you can get and really tap into in terms of your career support and advice as well is brilliant. Accommodation, if you're stuck, you're trying to find a room to rent, there's almost someone that knows somebody in the club that is looking. So just for me, it's always been an environment that I've always felt really comfortable and welcome in. So hence why I've never had to really feel like I've needed to look elsewhere, which has been great.
Moving on now to a topic close to your heart as a mixed race woman. Can you sort of touch on how you have found the last few weeks in particular?
Yeah, so I'm really lucky that I've only had, I say lucky, I'm fortunate that I've only experienced a few sort of bouts of racism in my life. And I suppose it's been, the last few weeks have been really positive in the sense that it's actually bringing to the forefront, bringing the attention to the forefront and really educating people that, racism doesn't exist. It's fine, but it's actually the subtle things that make the big difference, and the subtle comments or flyaway comments even that people make still, that is coming from a place, a little bit of ignorance, and maybe sort of, naivety, and not realizing what they're saying is offensive. And it's not just the whole Black Lives Matter. There's the big debate on Black Lives Matter and all lives matter, and of course we acknowledge all lives do matter, but at the moment it's Black lives that aren't mattering as much, or aren't feeling the same appreciation or the same acknowledgement, and experiencing the same, I can't think of the word, but they're not experiencing the same equality of life that maybe other communities are. So that's why they need to be heard, and that's why we do need to be heard and continue to need to be heard. And it's a shame that we need to be heard because people just don't realise it. And I think a lot of that's to do with education and just awareness. So it's really positive to see that the impact of the Black Lives Matter is working. It's challenging people's ways of thinking. It's educating those that maybe, were quite happy to either bury their head in the sand or hadn't personally experienced any sort of racism or hostility in the past. But I think really putting yourself in other people's shoes and realizing it's not okay. So, it is the time to stand up and be heard, be counted, whether you're getting involved in the movement or whether you are just educating yourself. It's really important. So it's getting really good traction. It's all really positive.
And I guess for rugby in particular, how far do you think the game has come, and what more do you think rugby can do?
It's gotten better. I know when I first came down to the club, it wasn't something that I noticed from a point of racism. I know it was an observation more than anything else, that I was sort of looking around and was aware that I was the only mixed race person there. Fortunately, we had an Islander who came, I think, the season after, Selena Rudge, who was a Kiwi player. So I kind of felt in good company then. So it was quite nice. But it was quite obvious to me that there was a bit of a disparity. And I think that's where rugby clubs could do better. A lot of clubs will claim and are very good community clubs and great community clubs where there's great interaction with the community. But I feel that rugby communities, being a little family in itself, really need to reflect the community that they're in. And it's not necessarily about just attracting the players into the community. It's outreaching to those communities that the clubs are in. And whether it's attracting new players, new volunteers, new officials, referees, whether it's people into the board, whether it's into the infrastructure of the club, then the clubs are really reflecting the community that they're in and that they're supporting, and that they are there to really celebrate all the differences that come from different walks of life. And typically a lot of clubs you go to are very, and it's the nature of the game, they are very white, middle class, upper class, because that's the nature of the sport and where it came from. However, part of sort of breaking down those barriers would be really engaging in the communities you're in. And there's probably parts of the community that maybe aren't aware of the benefits of being part of a club, or being part of such an extended club that reaches far beyond just playing on a pitch, and all the additional benefits that you get from being part of a team sport and a big club and a team club.
You've mentioned in the past, and you've spoken about this. Can you sort of touch on, I guess, in the women's game in particular, but the impact someone like Maggie Alwyn has had, and the way that she has changed perceptions in the women's game?
Maggie, I mean, she's awesome. I love that chick. We have great times whenever we get together. She's brilliant, and I think she's fantastic ambassador for the game completely, because she's better than I am. She's much more eloquent at speaking than I am. So she's better at getting herself across, and she's much more composed when she presents. So I know from Maggie's perspective, or from, I suppose, people looking at her, she's a great champion of the game, because she's sort of, from a player perspective, she's been there, done that. So she's worked from being a brand new player into the game, worked and reworked and disciplined herself at her training and her learning and progression into the England squad, and then maintaining. And she's a ferocious player to play against. I have nightmares still having played against her. She scares the pants out of me. Not so much now, she's old, but she's an awesome player to play against. And because you just knew she knew her stuff, and she was so ferocious with it. And she has the respect of all players. She has the time to talk to players. She talks to officials. She knows her technical points of the game. And I think the fact that the vision for her, and it's been noted a bit this over the last week, that she's been outspoken and is getting traction behind becoming the next president of the RFU. And let's vote for her now. But I think that's brilliant, because again, it's not just putting a person of colour into those positions. It's someone that you're not putting a token person in. You're voting in the person that would be the best person for the role, and the best person for the job, and someone who's got the insight into the game, a clear vision for the game, who can understand the sort of the infrastructures and the support around the games as well. And I think that's fantastic, because she's a person of colour. That should be celebrated as well. But you are looking at someone that you want to do the best job for you. So I think she's a fantastic role model. She's a fantastic role model for, I know she came from quite a difficult background as a child as well, growing up. Very similarly, I was really dyslexic, still am. I still have struggles with some stuff. And I know that Maggie really had to sort of champion a lot of things growing up through her secondary school life, and really channeled that into rugby. And, again, it's you can pick and choose your role models, but she's someone that I would definitely be sort of putting up there and really saying, this is someone that's done it. She's got it. She knows what she's doing. She's love her to pieces. Good girl.
Absolutely. Well, Maggie, if you're watching, thank you for everything you've done for the women's game in particular. Kapo, let's move swiftly on to the fun part of the whole vodcast, and that is the questions from the outer. We've got quite a few of these from our social media followers and club members. Right. So I hope you have a bit of fun with these random questions. But the first one is from Hannah Duffy. So she got in touch and she said, Kapo, who is your favourite prop?
Oh, interesting. Who's my favourite prop? Oh, that's a challenging one. I would probably go old school and would say that Sharon Whitehead is probably my favourite prop. She is an old Richmond girl, an old Richmond stalwart. She ferociously scary, as soft as you like off a pitch, but on a pitch, God, she scared the life out of me as well. So and she knew her stuff. Very technical, very, very good. I learned a lot from her. So I would say Sharon Whitehead. Sorry, Duffy, I know you're probably opting for you, but
I think that's what she was going for with that one. Next question here from Lucy. She asked you, what is your favourite position? And we spoke about this before, but you've obviously played a few. Where do you like to play the most?
I would say it differs. In the summer months, when it's probably a little bit warmer, a little bit hotter, I love playing at 12. I love the freedom to run around. I love having all the sort of open space, sort of being able to charge around the pitch but also have a little bit of rest, because we all know that backs like some downtime in the game. And then in the winter months, when it's really muddy and mucky and it's raining and it's just, there's mud everywhere, then anywhere in the pack, not really fussed 1 to 8, but just anywhere in the pack, because you just get, you get so mucky in the game. You're at every ruck. You're pretty much wanting to carry all the time, or sort of ruck over the top. Any tackle that comes in your direction, it's nice and soft underneath you, which is great. So it differs depending on the time of year or the weather.
Great answer. The next one here, bit of a inside joke, I think, but Alex Polish Zudanak asked, what is your superpower? And what is your superpower, Kapo?
My superpower is the ability to fall asleep, either standing up or just pretty much wherever I am. I've been known to power nap before a game in the changing room, power nap at half time. You'd be surprised at how you can utilize that 8-minute window, but it's very valuable. As well as sort of being able to power nap after a game and then get straight back up, have a shower and party. So I'd say that's probably my best superhero power.
Great power. It leads directly into my next set of questions from Mel. She asked, what music is normally played on away trips to wake you up?
So the opening sequence to The Lion King, which I think I have behind me. I do.
Fantastic. Look at that.
Always on cue. The opening sequence to The Lion King, so the Circle of Life. I am a very heavy sleeper once I'm asleep. And I think this season particularly, the girls found that, even trying to drag me off the chair, I'm just a bit of a dead weight. So they worked out, actually, if they started playing The Lion King to my ear, I just sort of naturally woke up as the sun rises out of the horizon. So, yeah, it's Mel.
And she's got another one here for you. She asks, is it true you fell asleep in your GCSE maths exam and still got an A?
Yep. I actually did it a year early as well. So I did it in year 10. I rocketed through my exam. I think it was an hour and a half or 2 hour exam, and I finished in about 40 minutes. I couldn't do any of that maths now, but I was like, right, I'm done, got it all done. I asked the teacher if I could leave. They said no, I had to stay for the whole time, so I just put my head down, went to sleep. Because okay, I was asked to leave, I think 10 minutes before the exam finished because I started snoring. So.
I also believe, from my inside knowledge, that there's a few rugby stadiums you've fallen asleep at around the country.
It's not just rugby stadiums; it's any stadium.
It's any stadium. It's anywhere.
Yeah.
So that is your superpower.
Yeah, definitely.
But another question here. This one is from a Richmond member, Sarah. She says, "What is your pre-game ritual, and do you have a post-game ritual? And what do you like to eat after the match?"
Okay. So pre-game ritual. I was asked this the other day actually because someone asked. They saw a picture of me before I played,
yeah.
And I so like to have a porridge before I play, and I'll try and keep it to sort of as close to the warm up as possible. So I'll usually have it I'll take a porridge pot with me to a game. In away games, I'll take a flask of hot water so I can just make it up ready to go. Or at the home games, we have a kettle at the club so I can just do it in the changing rooms. So I have a nice big bowl of porridge. Chuck some extra golden syrup in there. It's always good. I do have a ritual of writing L and R on my hands. Most people assume it's for left and right. It's for love rugby, obviously, but I am, like I said earlier, I'm quite just a little bit dyslexic, and I've always struggled with my left and right when I've been under a lot of pressure or feeling quite stressed. So if someone's shouting me, go right, go right, go right, and I might go the other direction. So if I've got it written on the back of my hands, then I'm all good, and I can kind of follow and go right, go that way. So that's a bit of a ritual that has to be done every game. So there's always a Sharpie on hand, and I've got that written down. Post game just depends on how long I've been playing for. That's a lie. Actually, most games I will have a power nap. I'll sort of see anyone on the side of the pitch if I need to just say hey to somebody or have a bit of a chat, but go into the change room, just have some quiet time, sort of 10 minutes to sort of feel the game, just sort of process anything that I either think went wrong or went really well and celebrate those little bits. Have a power nap, which I kind of brings me back down to like a nice grounded area, and then I'm ready to go off and celebrate with the girls, whatever the score, and just go and have a chat in the canteen or in the bar afterwards. Very
good. Who has been your favourite coach and why?
I've got two. My two favourite coaches, little historic, are so Fabian was one of the first coaches that coached me at Richmond. Fantastic coach, sort of was really technical with me, and he really got that I didn't understand rugby at all. So he was brilliant at sort of giving me very short, sharp instructions. Go and do this bit. Great, go and do that bit. So that really helped my learning and really sort of made my learning curve really steep one, but manageable for me in little bites. The second coach he is by far the most positive coach I've ever worked with, and he can turn every single sort of rainy day thunderstorms, like hail, sleet, massive losses. He can really turn any day into like a massive positive experience, and you will find the silver lining. And that's Mark Francis. Never words to anyone that, you can be feeling so like, oh my God, I just need this day to end. And he will come across, not only will he give you like the biggest bear hug, but he just beams with positivity, and he's infectious to the point that you're just like, you come away thinking like, we might have lost 50-0, but I feel great. Like, yeah. Because we're going to go to training on Tuesday and we're going to do this. He is just fantastic. And I mean, it is probably makes sense. He's he does motivational speaking as a living. So I think it kind of makes sense, but he motivates you to want to go and play, and he's brilliant. Love him to pieces.
Second last question here, I think. What is better, scoring a try at the Rag or having a post-match beer and enjoying a lock down in the sun while lock in?
Ooh. I mean, they kind of come hand in hand. Nothing beats scoring at home at all, because when you score at home, you kind of already know you're going to get the beer in the sun anyway. You're going to get the beer in the sun anyway, regardless. So I think scoring at home, you can never really beat that feeling. It's your home ground. You share it with all of your teammates. You've got your home supporters there as well. And I think being able to play on that hallowed ground that so many other massive names and games have been played on. I mean, internationals have been played on the Richmond ground as well. So England internationals, New Zealand have played there. So I think the fact that it's such a historic place, nothing beats that feeling.
Very good. And just one last one here about your future. Will you pull on the boots next season? And if you do, when you get to 300, how will you celebrate?
I think I have to get to 300, because I think I've always quoted you can't end on an odd number.
Very good. Yeah.
And so I need a nice round number. So I will definitely get to at least 300. So I don't quite know how I'll celebrate. I kind of have a bouncy castle in mind. One of my neighbours had a bouncy castle in the garden the other day, and I really want an adults one. I think, or like an obstacle course. That's kind of what I want. But I think just being able to have a drink in the bar with my mates after a game, and just celebrate, being able to play another game for Richmond, and having made and finished another game for Richmond. I think that would be enough for me. If the bounce castle's there, then great. But
we'll get that organised. I think we'll get that organised at the ground.
Make a note of it now, Tom.
Put that one down. Get that one in the planning. Kapo, a huge thank you for your time. We've had a great chat, and thank you for your honesty around a number of different subjects. But obviously, you're a much loved character at our club. You're a legend. We will all be there to celebrate when you hit that big 300 appearances for Richmond. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Tom.
And we look forward to seeing you. We look forward to seeing you and everyone back at the Rag soon when we can. Yes. But in the meantime, this has been another episode of Inside Richmond, the official vodcast of Richmond Rugby Club. Join us next time for another episode. Cheers, guys.